Evan, appreciate the time, man, and congrats on all the success you've had with Outlier. It's been incredible to watch you guys progress and all the success and things of that nature. And excited to hear more about what you guys are building for the future. But I want to start back at the beginning. Talk about where this idea came from, and even more so, like what Outlier is for people who might not understand what the platform does.
Yeah, totally. Thanks for having me on, Malcolm. The origin story goes way back actually to 2019. I will spare the audience with our first product, which was called Colorcast, which we then pivoted off of. You can probably find that story on some other podcast I've done. But yeah, so Outlier is essentially a Bloomberg terminal for sports betting. We allow bettors to go from insight to analysis to execution all in one seamless flow, both on iOS and web. What we're really hoping to help bettors do is again go kind of from, I don't even know what games are on tonight to, wow, here's a really cool insight. In the last 10 games on the road after a loss, when Austin Reeves isn't on the court, LeBron scored 25 points 10 out of 10 times. To go real kind of like deeper analysis and then ultimately execute the bet on sorry, at the best price on any of our sportsbook partners. We partner with, FanDuel, DraftKings, MGM, Caesars, even the Kalshis and the Poly markets of the world. And then we would give those options, all those options to our bettors. The origin story post Colorcast pivot was one of really listening to users and trying to prod the market for what it is that they wanted. So we conducted over 1,000 user interviews and surveys, and we were just asking things like, "Hey, you're a novice bettor. What are some pain points that you run into when trying to place a bet?" Or, "Hey, you're a sharp bettor. What would help you be even sharper when placing a bet?" Once we were able to kind of aggregate all of those insights, we did what we call the stack ranking exercise. It's actually not enough to know like what all the pain points are. We actually need to know them kind of in order of pain, if you will, so that we know that we're solving kind of the most painful pain points. And what we figured out there was pretty simple, and this is the backbone of Outlier, is bettors either A, don't know that data is readily available to them, or B, even if they know that it's readily available, they don't know how to contextualize it. So the example I give all the time is even before Outlier, let's say you're researching that LeBron 30 points prop. You might know that basketballreference.com exists. Or you might not. You might not even know that the stats are out there, but you might know that basketballreference.com exists. But when you go there, you're going to be looking at a spreadsheet of LeBron stats for all time. That's actually not useful at all for his prop line in tonight's game. So we really contextualize all that data and make it simple, even for a liberal arts student like myself, to just take some visual cues. This is a good bet. I see the sporting stats. I can fire it off at the best price.
For sure, for sure. And you were an attorney before you started this
Right.
company. So can you talk about like that transition? Like, did you know this idea would take off right away, or like what was the thinking process behind that, and how hard was it for you to take that leap?
Yeah. I don't know that in some ways it wasn't hard for me to take the leap because I was really ready to do something on my own. And I had just come off of a big 2 week federal trial that had just ground me down. And I was very, honestly, a bit jaded by the profession at the moment. So I wanted to take the leap into something, but it's also very, very scary to do. Anyone who's opened a business or kind of gone out on their own feels the same feeling. I think it was especially acute for me though, because it was really a one-way door, right? Like, I was going from an attorney to an entrepreneur. It's going to be very hard. If I ever wanted to go back and be an attorney, it'd actually be very hard to do that. I've kind of abandoned the profession. Whereas, some people, like an engineer, for instance, when they make the leap to startup land and they're still doing engineering work, it's not hard for them to then go back and be an engineer at a Fortune 500 company or whatever. So that was the scary part, is the fact that it was very much like a one-way door. In terms of whether I knew it was going to be successful right off the bat, no, absolutely not. I mean, we did as much research as humanly possible to try to come up with a product and solve some of those pain points. But it wasn't until we got our first $20 a month subscription that we knew that anyone would even pay for it. I will say this though, the moment that you make for any entrepreneur out there, they probably have felt this. The moment that you make that first dollar, it's really binary. It's like it went from I don't know if anyone will pay for this to somebody will pay for this. Then it's just a question of like market sizing and your ability to get out and market. But that first $20 is very, very special, despite it only being $20.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And so from that point, you guys had paying customers early on, but when did you get to the point where it's like, all right, we have something, we want to go and raise capital? Like, what was that thinking process?
Yeah, so again, I like I said, I spared you some of this history, but we had actually already raised capital before we pivoted into Outlier. But we actually just came off of a Series A round. And yeah, I mean, you need to know that you have product market fit. For really for seed or well, seed is finding product market fit. Series A is I have product market fit. I need growth capital. So that's definitely where the point we're at now. I will say this. I've always there's like a million frameworks for assessing whether or not you have product market fit. In my view and in my experience, none of them are actually sufficient. It's sort of like you'll know it when you know it. And the reason I can say that is this is because with our first product, ColorCast, we we debated as ad nauseum, just around and around and around and around of whether or not we had product market fit. Yeah, we do. No, we don't. What are the signs? How would we know? I'm not sure. And it just changed day to day. With Outlier, it's just clear. Like we just have the feeling, we see the traction, we see the growth, we see strong long tail retention. You just kind of know. So once we knew that, then we knew okay, now it's about growing the business, getting growth capital, and ultimately propelled us towards the Series A.
And then looking back at those first couple customers, a lot of people struggle to get like, let's say their first 100 people paying for their product. What did you guys do? How did you get in front of customers and like get your product out there? What was the strategy around marketing?
The same people that we asked their opinion about what their pain points were, those were our first customers. Because then what we got to do is we got to go right back to them and say, you said that it was hard to compare prices across sports books. We built it. Like we listened to you, we built it. And they're like, oh, okay, I guess I mean, some will, some won't, but some subsection of those said, okay, yeah, I'll pay $20. Like, and they're honestly kind of flattered. They're like, you built that for me. You literally listened to what I told you. This is actually pretty cool. Um, that same MO is of like listening to users and building product is, and again, this is nothing revolutionary, but it's the same thing we do today. Um, users those very first users and even our like current hundreds of thousands of users they are shocked at how closely we listen to them. I mean, think about the last time you were able to contact in-app support. Most apps don't even have in-app support, but like when's the last time you like put in a support ticket on an app and then a week later, well, you got a response right away, but a week later they said, "We listened to you and we updated the app and shipped new code." I mean, that's like that doesn't
Unheard of.
happen. So it's
Yeah.
just like people just get so excited and they end up evangelizing for us once we do that.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's a fundamental practice of building anything, and a lot of people just don't do it. They don't talk enough to their customers. So I love that mindset that you guys had early on, and even now. You talked about raising this Series A, and I think for a lot of founders, raising capital is a full-time process along with trying to build a company. So how did you balance between the two? And what advice would you give yourself looking back at that? Seed round, but also the Series A that you guys just recently raised.
I don't know if I balanced it appropriately. I'll have to like think on that longer and in the over a longer time period, I guess. But one word of caution, one thing I think I could have done better is, as the CEO, obviously you're the prime point of contact for fundraising. You're the prime storyteller. You should have a handle on all the metrics. You should know what you're going to do with the use of funds, etc. At some point, you do need to end up pulling, like I did, you need to pull in your CTO and talk to the investors about product or whatever. I think one thing that again, learning I had is I should have been even more vigilant about protecting my team's time. At the end of the day, like the investor is either going to be convicted or they're not going to be convicted, and me pulling in every single member of the team to like talk to the investor doesn't make a ton of sense. It's not really going to change that kind of initial conviction or non-conviction of the investor. So, in retrospect, I should have protected my team's time better. And and allowed them to really just continue to build the business. But yeah, personally, I mean, I was taken away almost completely from building the business, and that sucks. I don't like that feeling. I want to build the business, and I felt frustrated. Not by the firm themselves. It's just the nature of fundraising. But I felt frustrated that I was spending so much time thinking through deal structure and talking to lawyers versus testing new go-to-market strategies or opining on product or whatever else I would otherwise be doing.
No, it's good insight. And looking at consumer behavior from 2019 till now, I would say it shifted a lot in terms of how they interact with sports. What has surprised you about the transition that we've seen, I guess, around sports betting more so for consumers from when you guys first started the company to now?
Yeah. One surprise to the upside and one surprise to the downside. The surprise to the downside is for sports betting in particular, is that people are just checking out. They've lost enough bets. They've heard enough, horror stories about how you can just, spiral and lose all your money, and they've just checked out. I think that's happening at a faster rate than I would have expected. So that's kind of the surprise to the downside. The surprise to the upside is bettors who are sticking around, which to be fair, or to be clear, I think is still like the majority, but for the bettors that are sticking around, they're maturing and they've matured from I'm just going to place a bet blindly to I'm going to pay someone on Twitter to tell me like what picks I should take to I actually need a tool to help me research. And
Mhm.
we're that phase 3. Here's the tool to help you research. So that's been a nice surprise to the upside is that bettors are maturing pretty quickly. And it's actually growing our kind of not yeah, I guess growing our total addressable market.
Yeah, for sure. And then looking at prediction markets, we're seeing a lot around Kalshi and Polymarket. Like, what are your thoughts on how those platforms kind of fit in the greater sports betting ecosystem?
Yeah, there are two kind of divergent groups of sports bettors out there, and we can see the industry tracking this. So one group, the one that we're primarily speaking to now, is really interested in the financialization of sports betting. So it's not enough for them just to be able to fire off a parlay on DraftKings. They want to do limit orders, futures. They want to be able to trade in and out of positions really quickly in the middle of a game, right? Pre-game, all of that. Kalshi, Polymarket, these exchanges, they really facilitate that and are ushering in that financialized future. They also just have really great tech. We've integrated with both of them, and we're able to do some really neat stuff now, and actually soon, which you'll see that is really neat and serves that kind of super better customer. Um, the other customer type that I'm seeing, which is very divergent though, is looking for simpler and simpler experiences. I believe that there is a whole group of sports fans that are still on the sidelines and aren't betting at all right now because, quite frankly, betting is just too complicated. They don't know how to read the odds. They think they're gonna lose all their money. Yeah, they just don't know how to even get in. And there are sports fans that know ball. I don't know. They just are afraid to jump into something that seems pretty complex. I don't really know who's Prize Picks actually did a great job of this, but with the exception of Prize Picks, I don't really know who's tackling that or really attacking that cohort of bettors. But that's a giant opportunity is to go for this super simple, no odds. Um, it's easy enough for your grandmother type betting.
Mhm. Being a founder in sports, I think, is very different from other industries. There's an emotional component that plays a huge role in it from a consumer perspective. What do you think there, is something that outsiders or people who don't work in sports don't understand about what it takes to build a successful product, let's say a consumer product within the sports tech space?
Yeah, this is a secular problem for sports tech companies that ranges across fundraising, understanding metrics, go to market, all of it, which is seasonality. Seasonality is so difficult. It's actually like also emotionally taxing. So, our high season is from basically NFL kickoff through roughly like the beginning of NBA playoffs. Once we get to NBA playoffs, there's only a few games a week, and it's the only sport left, and all of that. So really those months like June-ish, but really June, July, most of August. I mean, those that's like it is dead. It is dead, dead out there. And that's complicated for a lot of things. Like it's hard for us to project growth because of this weird off season. It's hard. You really need to think about timing your capital raise based on that off season. For us, we've always tried to raise like right as the high season's kicking up, so that as we go deeper and deeper into the conversations, the numbers are just going up and up and up and creating more deal heat. Um, but yeah, like man, the entire business revolves around that seasonality, and I just if you're out there selling a AI CRM SaaS tool, it just doesn't the seasonality doesn't matter.
Hmm. Um, what would you say is, I mean, you talked about some of the challenges just now, but like outside of that, what would you say has been the most eye-opening or surprising part about taking this, like building and elevating and growing this product over the past 6 years?
Yeah. Well, I do think, I mean, this is similar to that kind of fundraising question, but I do actually think it's more difficult. Well, I guess I haven't raised in a whole more in any space other than the sports betting space, but it's actually difficult to raise capital at elevated valuations because, from my experience, sports investors are demanding revenue and in some instances like EBITDA positive businesses. Um, which is great. And we're generating revenue. We're an EBITDA positive business, but the moment this is like some like Silicon Valley maxim, but like the moment you are showing revenue, you're actually capping your valuation because you're not selling the dream anymore. Now it's like, okay, well, how much has your revenue grown over the last 24 months?
Yeah.
So while all of us are like, while those investors are parading around like venture investors, they're really kind of acting like PE investors. And I think that's probably very different than, if you were building just like a consumer social app and you're like, we'll monetize 10 years down the road. And when we do, it's going to be $1 billion straight off the bat. Um, so, so yeah, it's just a difficult space to build in because valuations are a bit depressed,
Yeah.
and you have to prove that you're a real business.
Hmm. And getting back to the product, for example, one question I have is about like how do you maintain that ability to listen to consumers as the product grows, like implementing um, things that actually provide value and it's not just noise in the product. And, obviously, as you get more customers, that becomes harder to do. So how do you guys think about, how you're innovating and building on the product, even though you can't really have like that one-to-one interaction or talk to every customer and understand their pain points and needs?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's a few steps. So step one is you do need to source as much intel as humanly possible. We do that a ton of ways. We have the in-app chat, we have a Discord server. I mean, we'll even mine like when we run an ad on Meta, we'll even look at the comment section and just like mine feedback from the comments. So the feedback pipeline is enormous. I mean, it's like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pieces of qualitative feedback a week. But then the challenge is step two, which you just suggested, is okay, well, then how do I actually parse that feedback? And there, I think you need to rely on a few things. One is, I mean, if something's like, if there's a overwhelming drumbeat, everyone's asking for X, then you probably seriously need to consider whatever that is. But all else equal, we really need to rely on two things. One is our product managers and our CTO's ability to just understand the market, understand where the market is going, cut through a bunch of the noise and like make good product decisions. Two is remaining core to what you're actually trying to do. So for Outlier, we are trying to help people do really like pre-game prop research. So if anything has to do with like fantasy or live betting or might end up just being noise in the product, we're pretty much ignoring it. Uh, so those are, I think, the kind of like two main things. But then the other thing too is just like you want to ship fast. So the faster we can ship, the faster we get that next round of feedback, and we know whether or not that was actually a good product decision or not. What we don't want to do is sit around for weeks and weeks like hand wringing about which product feature set we want to build. Um, if we ever get in that mode, then what we should be doing is just biting off smaller feature sets and shipping those.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's difficult and it's getting harder and harder as we grow the user base. And one reason for that is, now even if we move one button, like a centimeter to the left, we'll hear it from our users where they're like, "Where'd that button go? I relied on that button every day." So you start to get into a bit of a innovator's dilemma where users are relying on or and have gotten used to the UI UX.
Absolutely, absolutely. Really good insight. And last few questions before we wrap up. Looking at the outlook of Outlier, let's say
Yeah.
5 years from now, like what do you hope people say about the company, the platform in which you guys are building? Where do you see Outlier kind of going or the long-term
Yeah.
vision, let's say?
Yeah. So from what I hope they're saying about us, I mean, I hope they're saying that we are helpful. I hope they're saying that we're trustworthy, and I hope that they are saying that we have market leading product, and it's best product on the market. In terms of where we're going, so the long-term vision of the business. So let's think Outlier the business on Outlier the product. Outlier the business, what we're trying to do is what I'm calling super serving the data-driven sports fan. So Outlier, the product, is super serving the data-driven sports fan that is trying to make pre-game prop bets, right? There could be a totally separate product that is super serving the data-driven sports fan who's trying to set up their fantasy lineups or play the waiver wire for the week. There could be a totally separate product that's super serving the sports fan who's trying to do live bets. The way I'm thinking about it is actually really akin to like the sort of Match.com model. So Match.com, like they have Match.com, but they also
Mhm.
have, Farmers Only, JDate, Grinder, Tinder. These are all actually serving very different jobs to be done, even though they're all in the dating space.
Yep.
I really think that we should be building an ecosystem like that, which it's like, I know what my job as a user, I know what my job to be done is. I know what product in Outlier's line of products accomplishes that job. And I know that because they're being really narrow, there's going to be no noise. All I'm going to find there is help with my fantasy lineup, for instance.
Hmm.
So anyway, so that's part of what the fundraising is too, is like how do we start biting off more of those verticals and basically completing more of those jobs. So that's where we're going.
Yeah, I love it. And I love the tagline, the Bloomberg terminal for
Yeah.
sports betting. That's beautiful.
Yep.
And then last question, what's one broad or even specific prediction that you have for the sports betting space, looking at the same timeline, like 5 years from now?
Okay, 5 years from now, I think that sports betting gets considerably more social. It is very much a single player game right now. It will become a multiplayer game. I don't even know what I mean by that, but it has to move that direction and it will. So that's like probably my boldest and also like most mysterious prediction about the future. I also think we're going to catch quite a bit of regulatory headwinds in the next 5 years. And so figuring out how to navigate that and figuring out how you kind of fit into the RG narrative is going to be very, very important. But yeah, those are probably my two biggest.
For sure. Well, Evan, look, man, I appreciate your time once again. Let people know where they can connect with you, but also learn more about Outlier.
Cool. Yeah, easiest way to connect with me is actually just on LinkedIn. I'm honestly kind of overactive, so find me there. So,
Sounds
uh, yeah, that's it. Cool. Thanks,
sounds
Jonathan.
good, man. Thank you.
All right.